This video is going to kind of be everywhere. It's going to be a mixture of everything that I have forgotten to show during the videos of the past. And I could probably made about 4 videos of all the stuff that I meant to include that I actually never included by mistake. So we're going to throw a lot of those in here. We're going to take a look at a couple of wrestlers from the collections that I started on the side, like I did with Bruno Sammartino and the Sheik. I showed you guys some different things that I collected while they were not champion and stuff like that. We're going to take a little early look at Superstar Graham. We're going to, like I said, we're going to bounce all over. We're going to do a little bit from Southern California, Northern California, and the Los Angeles territories. So let's just jump into it. It's going to be no rhyme or reason, just a bunch of stuff that I had overlooked before and meant to get on video. Where we left off on our last video from Georgia, someone could not wait and was chomping at the bit to tell me how wrong I was about the superstar, or the masked superstar, and he was never known as the superstar. And I'm afraid you are incorrect, and I dug out a program with a lineup sheet to show. But this is, as I was digging through my other stuff to dig out for right now, for the superstar, I found this 8x10 that I had that absolutely is awesome. It's him with the National Heavyweight Championship title belt with Gordon Soley live in the TV studio. What a great 8x10 that is. Here is a program from, try to get it in the light and to where I can actually see it myself. Georgia Heavyweight Champion, the Superstar versus Bob Armstrong. And this is April 12th, 1979. And there it is in black and white. Not the masked superstar, the Superstar. And a few other magazines that I had signed by the masked superstar, which I said I call him that too. That's how I was first introduced to him on the television, as the masked superstar in the WWF. When I mentioned about the autographs, he signs it Superstar. Then there it is with Blackjack Mulligan, again with Wildfire Tommy Rich. Don't know what else to say about that other than, if you want to believe that you're right, that's perfectly fine. His name's the masked superstar to you, but very good. But he went by Superstar, not the masked superstar, till later on. While digging through some of the Georgia stuff, I've actually found a couple more of these Egyptian magazines. Tommy Rich with Stan Hansen, as they were a tag team on the cover, which was pretty cool. I had mentioned Tony Atlas had just won the bodybuilding competition, and inside this issue here is Tony after winning I believe it was the Mr. Hercules competition in Georgia, and there's all pictures of that competition inside. This is the biggest I've probably ever seen Atlas. Man, he was jacked beyond belief. The inside pictures of him are just massive. Here's a weird picture that I didn't realize I had. Not weird, cool actually. Abdullah the Butcher as the Georgia Heavyweight Champion from the 70s. It was in with my other hundreds of 4x6s and 3x5s that I have. But cool looking shot of Abdullah with the Georgia belt. You don't see him on any cover with that ever anywhere. And it's a pretty rare title for him to have held. Also, what I didn't mention from where we went through Championship Wrestling from Georgia, or Georgia Championship Wrestling, was the other Atlanta promotion, All South Wrestling, that was ran by the Gunkles and Ann Gunkel, and we all kind of know the history on what happened, and companies got bought out and switched over, and Watts came in, and TVs got switched, and Ann was doing pretty well. She had pretty well success with her husband, and before he passed away, and tried to continue to keep things going in the early 70s. And here's just a couple of programs from the All South Wrestling Alliance. Their champion was Ox Baker, and he was taking on Ernie Ladd, defending the title against Ernie Ladd. This is coming off the cuffs of that NWF time where the double cross happened in with Johnny Powers and the Sheik and Pampero Firpo, that we all discussed about that in the NWF video. This is the same time period. Now they're bringing that same feud over to the Atlanta territory, and then soon to be out in Los Angeles later on. The coverage from the match from All South Championship, All South Wrestling Alliance is on this issue of The Wrestler, August of 1974, covering Ladd and Ox Baker on the cover. One of the few covers that Ox actually made the front cover for. A couple of more programs here from the All South Wrestling Alliance. Again, match lists are inside. The date of everything is inside like that. It's just, I wanted to show them really quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. This was Jack Armstrong, by the way, who was the other Armstrong from Bob Armstrong, Brad Armstrong family, and whatnot. The Jack spent a lot of time out in Los Angeles and in California up in north as well. And again, here is the Assassin with Gunkel Enterprises, as you see across the top of the All South Championship Wrestling. This is the program that Ernie Ladd loses Ox Baker loses the title to Ernie Ladd. And so that's it for just backtracking on a couple of the Georgia things that I missed and decided to add to it last second just by showing the Superstar's actual name. Another thing reminds me too from the Georgia that I really didn't talk about, Jimmy Snuka being tag team partners with Bam Bam Gordy when the Freebirds split up. And I was talking about, I think before my 100th video, I was in the process of having Jimmy Snuka figure made, and that's actually here. I should have showed it before. Did a fantastic job on Superfly heel in 1980-81 circa here. He's got the boots and the shorts, of course, the goatee, which gave him that cool, evil look. This was my favorite look of Superfly Snuka. The guy does a heck of a job with his customs and the paint. And also have the U.S. belt for him. We're going to talk about Snuka and the U.S. belt again, but the one that was holding for the Sheik, it kind of went over to Jimmy Snuka, which is also an awesome looking belt. But there he is, the Superfly, the way he should have been released by the WWF, but they usually don't capture certain time periods, and you need to have it the way you liked it from when you were younger. Of course, there was no toys. We had nothing but magazines and programs. Generations later on had, popsicles, tampons, lunchboxes. It was everything. We had shit. And I kind of liked it better that way too, before it was all blown up and became a circus. Let's take a look at younger Superstar Billy Graham from the early 70s. And, we all know his mammoth career and championships that you may not have known that he held before the World Wrestling Federation. Some only believe he held one or two, and it was a whole lot more than that. Here's another one of my favorite covers with Superstar, July of '74, and he's just starting the tie-dye here. Didn't have it all. He was more of the hippie look early on. You're going to see a little bit more of that as we go through a couple of earlier issues here. Tie-dye was soon to follow shortly, right around the time when he went to the IWA in Japan and took the title from over there from Billy Robinson with that, bogus supposed match, which is controversial. But the tie-dye would start right after this time period right here. Here is a Action Wrestling, California's official magazine / program, kind of like the body press you would see with the Sheik and also the parade for the IWA magazine programs. Same deal. Superstar with a Pat Patterson as his tag team partner. Pat just removing that mask that he was wearing at the time. He and Superstar Ripper Collins here as well spent a lot of time out in Hawaii, as well as the whole western side of the country from California and whatnot. And early shot of Superstar here on one of his very first covers before making a bigger name for himself. And like I said, here he is just a few months prior, when Pat Patterson, his tag team partner, were the tag team champions in California. This is the San Francisco area of California, and they are the I guess it's the United States Tag Team Championship belts, which was the generic name that every NWA title, tag team title, was given, and also their number one independent title for their number one singles. That was just under the World Heavyweight and the World Tag Team belts. So young looking Superstar Billy Graham here, autographed 8x10. He's not on any magazine covers. I don't recall him in many magazines at all as the tag team champions with Patterson here, but a real early look Superstar's very first championship belt. Pretty cool. He just made his appearance and his debut, not more than a year or so before that. Superstar from San Francisco would also venture down to Los Angeles and compete in the WWA Los Angeles, NWA Hollywood, and here he is more with that hippie look I was discussing here in 1970. This was around early summer, early spring, early fall, late summer Superstar here in Los Angeles, and you can see the peace sign on the boots, the beads, the headband, and the tassels on the boots. Pretty different look for Superstar before he would actually shave all his hair off, dye it black, wear a black beard, moved out to a quick run in Japan, and then come back again as the gold blonde hair and make another run with a different look with the tie-dye. So he had several different looks that many may not pick up on. He had that black hair and black beard, defeating Jose Lothario in Texas for the Brass Knuckles Championship title, also around this time period too, early 74, 73 time. Here is, and by the way, this is Superstar's very first magazine cover. I know that it made some controversy with some people saying that it was this one here or the one that's next up. No, it's this one, January 71, and it's your first. It even says it's introducing Superstar. Graham talks of peace, and right there is his introduction, his first magazine from the wrestler. This is in 72, and of course it's some 10 months later that this issue was released. Taking on John Tolis, wearing the shorts with a little bit of tie-dye, still with the hippie look here, as he's battling on Tolis in the Los Angeles NWA territory. And again, some mistake. Superstar's first issue for this one. This is in April of 72, a good year and 4 months past his introduction issue. Again, with the American flag robe. Superstar was not much of a robe guy. Very, very early on, you would see something like that. He had a really cool one with a dragon that I really liked. The Japanese magazines have him with that on, but not in color. I was searching for a color shot of that. What an awesome picture of that real colorful, bright tiger and dragon on that jacket. I wish we had some better pictures of that sucker. Superstar would leave both California and Northern California, Southern California, and make his way up to the AWA and wrestle for the AWA title with Vern Gagne. And he would meet up with Billy Robinson, and the AWA had a working relationship with the only World Heavyweight Championship title in Japan, the IWA, IWE, which is IWA, International Wrestling Association's IWE, International Wrestling Enterprises Company world title. All Japan wasn't out yet. New Japan wasn't out yet. They were on the verge of it very, very shortly, within several months, because they both formed in 1972 when Antonio Inoki decided to split from the JWA and left Inoki. Two companies formed, but right now the IWA was the considered the only world championship belt. JWA could not consider that a world title when Ricky Dozan was there and Giant Baba was there, because they're a member of the NWA, and there's only one NWA world title, and that's the NWA world title that we all know. So therefore it was a regional country / local championship belt rather than a world. So the IWA, the world title, Superstar Graham would enter a tournament and would take on, backed it up. Superstar Graham would win the title over Billy Robinson, who was one of the champions of the IWA in that working relationship with the AWA. And Superstar would take him on and win the title in what they say a bogus match, a fictitious match. It wasn't, apparently. I'm not sure the whole politics behind it. Everyone has their theory on it. They did have a match. It was while Robinson was the champ. Robinson didn't lose the belt that night. I guess he handed it over. Graham won it, and they said the match happened in the States. Some say it happened in Japan. We're not here to debate it. We're just here to say, okay, Superstar is the next champ, and we're moving forward from there. Here is a tournament where Superstar is defending the title, and he's on the front cover here as the champion of the World Title Series. Pretty rare program to find. There's also one, Andre the Giant made his first appearance in the IWA and was tag team champions, and that was be his first championship belt as well for the IWA tournament that they held. Here's Superstar with that IWA belt. Pretty hard to find pictures of Superstar with that belt. Now you see the full tie-dye, and you can't really tell. He's got the black beard and blonde mustache, kite-like Hollywood Hulk Hogan would have. Superstar is here doing it first. Another shot of Superstar. This is the night that he would lose the belt to Ensign NOA or Mighty NOA. This was his last look. This was the outfit and the pose just before the match, and a little bit closer you might be able to see that beard there, Superstar. Another early young look with Superstar. The coverage of Superstar defending the title is in this November issue of Gong in 1974, and here is, if I can get it to stay open, bear with me a sec. Graham in full color, and the glare sucks, you know the deal, sorry guys. But good looking shot of Superstar here coming off the top, defending the title. And it just says about Superstar Graham making his title defense as IWA World Champion, and soon to be losing it to the Mighty NOA shortly. But and this is a title defense. It goes on. There's some more information and some more black and white pages of Superstar with that title. This is the only magazine that covered it. IWA, you know, as big as they were, they really didn't get the credit as the JWA did, and therefore, you know, it was publicized and stuff. But you know, the magazines really cater towards Baba and Inoki and that kind of. There are two companies in between. This issue here, going back to the States now, Superstar coming back. He's moving into the WWF territory, challenging Bruno Sammartino for the championship belt, and makes his first appearance in the New York area, and what a crowd he draws. This magazine is known for those wonderful, ridiculous, overpriced cards, as you see here, and that's for this reason many people never really had a chance. Now this is Wahoo McDaniel now with the IWA Heavyweight Championship belt. Wahoo, actually Superstar, was the last person to hold this version of it. Vern Gagne held that one, Billy Robinson, Wahoo of course, who was it, Killer Kimura. There's several dudes held this style before it changed to the other style that Superstar had. He was the first person to have this version. Anyway, there's Wahoo with that same belt. So you guys probably noticed this shit, you know, many times. I just never knew what belt it was, and me being a belt fanatic, I just pick up on these things. Anyway, the cards were in this, but here is where Superstar hits the streets of Manhattan, and Bill Apter is following him around, and look at the crowd he draws. Now, we all know the magazine of him on the cover, of him posing on top of that trash can outside of 42nd Street in Manhattan and Times Square, where he was strolling through. It was not on this. This picture here is on a different magazine cover. I'm talking about that one here. So that magazine cover does not show this article, and people are like, where is that article? I can't find the article with Superstar in Manhattan walking through the streets, but here's the magazine cover that he's on. It wouldn't be released until 2 years later, the actual photos of him in another issue here, and there it is. And pretty cool, man. Superstar's out there with no shirt on, and it's pretty cool candid shots of him walking down the streets. There might be some more pages from it, but not many people got to see the inside of this or own this magazine, because like I said, the cards made the magazine, you know, ridiculously priced you out of even thinking about buying it for some stupid reason. And just thought I would show those pretty early shots and rare shots of Superstar making his way to the Northeast for the first time and take on Bruno that night. Another iconic cover of this one, of course, one of my favorites as a kid. Still is today one of my favorites, but this was like my dream issue to get. I had to mail away for it, spend $5, and pray that it didn't come damaged, soiled, or water stained, as the title said on the back issue when you send away for it. There was no pictures of it. You just needed to know the dates of these certain back issues that were supposedly found in a different warehouse when Mr. Weston had moved to, locations from Rockville Center from his home to the other location, from TV Sports to London Publishing, and whether they were probably in his basement, and they probably just had gotten wet from wherever. And luckily, I was never one to get one of the damaged or soiled or ripped magazine covers. Praying, because $5, that was like 100 in 1978, 79. This was not on the back issues for very long. Sold pretty fast. But this is the night he would challenge. Bruno would challenge for the world title back just after Superstar won the belt. So he had one title defense first against Gorilla Monsoon at the Garden. He won the title in April. That was in May, and this is now June. I think it was June 6th. Superstar and Bruno gets his first crack back at the championship, and this is the front cover. That match is covered inside this issue in full color if anyone is interested. And this is August of 1977 with Mil Mascaras on the cover, and there's just a great shot of Superstar here with the world belt, and a great shot shooting up at him from the bottom. Superstar looking down. They said he loved posing for the magazines, would always stand in front of the camera and pose as long as they wanted. They loved him for sure, and he loved the attention. And then here is the match. You don't see very much coverage of this with Superstar in the blue trunks like that. He was big with the reds and the purples and yellows and oranges and stuff, but these light blues you didn't see in color very often. So there's some great shots there. And just sometimes I'm flipping by, I just happened to notice the Flair and Greg Valentine, or the NWA World Tag Team Champions, or if you want to call it, the Mid-Atlantic Crockett Tag Team Champions, before their feud would just about get ready to explode in a couple of short years in 1980 or so. Good looking shot of two tag team champions and real early, old, small tag team championship belts. All that and more, like I said, in this cover, in this edition of August 77 Gong, separate volume. A few of you guys had asked me to make something for California and the state of California wrestling, and the thing is, man, it's so hard to gather stuff from Los Angeles. Or even San Francisco. It is such a tough territory. It's rare to begin with. There wasn't a whole lot of extras out there. People didn't hang on to them, and when they are listed, this shit's gone fast. It is really hard to get decent stuff from California. I do have a few things. I have a few things more, and I was starting to put together the material to make the California state wrestling video, and as I'm pulling things out, I threw a couple in here just to show for now, for maybe a little precursor to what's to come once I finish and get everything together for that video for you guys. The earliest one I have, Winterland Auditorium, San Francisco, made an auditorium made popular by an early appearance of Kiss in 1973, 4, somewhere around that time period, and made one of their first live recordings in black and white. The same ballroom here for wrestling. I shouldn't say ballroom, auditorium, Winter Wonderland. This is my earliest, 1955, January 26, and is a real early look at Bobo Brazil here, real young, lean, and in shape Bobo starting out here in California. They had a unique magazines, like I showed earlier with Superstar and Patterson. They had their own style of magazine called Action, which was, like I said, was also a program. The lineup sheets are all inside these. Some of them are on the some of them are on the back, and some of them are inside. And the ones that are on the back, I'll show you, so I don't have to open everything. There was some smaller ones made. Now here's Pat Patterson here as the United States heavyweight champion. Under the hood, early shot of Patterson when he wore the mask, taking on the Great Mephisto, who was also the champ. These two would go back and forth, battling for the U.S. title. And right now, it's who is the real champion? Which one is it? The controversy with the titles that were going to be eventually tied up. Early shot of Superstar Billy here. He's getting ready to take on Terrible Ted, the bear, and Superstar matching up for the tail of the tape before the match, and Superstar wrestling a gimmick match. Pretty funny there. You don't really see that pick very often either. Moving on, is there a lineup sheet? Yeah, I think this was a battle royal. Trying to get the date. San Francisco, January 27th, 1973. Battle royal. Also, Stevens and the Great Mephisto battle for the titles. There are also a bunch of tag team matches, a bunch of six-man tag team matches. Patterson would be tag team champion, so would Mephisto would also be tag team. Here's the two wrestling on a cover. They didn't have a whole lot of matches in action photos on these. Mostly were posed, but there was a few that were in action shots for these magazines. They're pretty cool, man. There's 20, 30 some odd pages, whatever. Something small, all black and white, no color, but pretty cool nonetheless. This is 1971 at the Cow Palace. Superstar Graham is taking on Paul DeMarco. I think the inside I have the lineup. And Rocky Johnson is now the United States champion. He would also battle Patterson back and forth for the championship belt. And as a young Rocky Johnson, Rocky was just the America's champion down in Los Angeles, moved his way up to San Francisco where he was red hot as well, and he would take the title there also. Paul DeMarco, Luscious Lars Anderson, or Luscious Larry Heinemimi, depending on which territory you got to see Lars wrestle in. And they are the United States Tag Team Champions now. They'll have a date, and it's inside. I didn't write it on the outside. I'll have all this stuff categorized and labeled properly for the California video once it comes out. This is the night Mephisto wins the U.S. title from Patterson in February 17th, 1973. Yeah, here's the lineup in the back. And rest of the people on the card, Ray Stevens, Lars Anderson, Rocky Johnson, Pepper Gomez, Luke Graham, the masked interns who were mainstays there as well, Red Bastien, and the Samoans, the different Samoans, I think. You know what, I'm not sure. That could have been the Samoans, the ones we all know. There was another set of Samoans before Alpha and Sika. But a good-looking shot here of when Patterson and Rocky Johnson were the tag team champions. So here's Rocky with two belts in the California territory in about 18 months, doing quite well for himself. Great Goliath takes a bloody cover in this January of 1976 issue here. Ray Stevens is battling Pat Patterson for the U.S. title, I think. Let me just double check this. January 24th, 1976. We got Moondog Mayne, who was also another wild man mainstay in California, taking on Java Rook, for those who know who Java Rook is. Dutch Savage on Funk Jr. Rocky Johnson takes on Bobby Jaggers. Pedro Morales battling Harley Race, pre-world champion, second run Harley Race. Terry Funk now is the champion. And Don Morocco also on the card. Another big run for Morocco was there, and also Mr. Fuji as well. Pretty cool lineup. A lot of them will be heading out to the Northeast quite soon in their futures. Java Rook, rare shot of the Sheik. Java Rook, better known to the WWF fans as the unpredictable Johnny Rods, and got it signed by Johnny as Java Rook, also Johnny Rods on the bottom. Rare picture of Johnny in the full setup with the camel on the trunks, as well as his boots and the headscarf. Johnny Rods. A lot of guys didn't know he had two different gimmicks, and he wasn't just an enhancement guy in the Northeast. Johnny was, mid-card and upper level wrestler at a lot of the places. Let's take a look now. We're going to drop down to Southern California. So we were up north, we're down south. This is one of the Lucha Libre wrestling magazines from Southern California in the WWA Los Angeles. Young Chavo Guerrero comes out of the gate red hot, on the heels of his father, who was still red hot in the California territory. Chavo takes the America's title, I believe. It's escaping me who he beat for it. I don't remember. He ended up losing the title to Roddy Piper, and then won it back from Piper for his second run. But here's an early look at Chavo. Not talking about Piper right now. We're talking about the blood feud against Terry Funk. And here he is. This is a program for March the 5th, 1976 at the Olympic Auditorium for the world title. Funk, the champion, taking on the America's champion. Now, Chavo has a victory over Terry Funk just several months before Terry won the world title. Chavo is ridiculously red hot with the fans, and here he is, another shot, and this is continuing discussing about the battle with him and Funk. Him and Funk had incredible battles all over between Texas and California throughout the 76 time period, and this is just one of their we're calling their death match. This is Texas versus Mexico. This is nationality versus nationality, and both sides, recipe for fortune at the box office to see, and everybody wanted Funk to go down. Chavo would also partner up with Vachon and become the WWA Los Angeles Tag Team Champions. Here's another program from Southern California. This is October 5th. I'm sorry, no. This is June 4th, 1976, and the lineup on the back. This is the night that Butcher Vachon and Chavo dropped the titles to Fabulous Frank and Crusher Verdú. Crusher Verdú, a multiple-time tag team champion there as well for the Americas Championship. Mr. California versus Pork Chop Cash. The Alaskan takes on Pepper Gomez. And at the bottom here, you'll see Hair versus Hair. Chavo's father, Gory Guerrero, taking on Rowdy Roddy Piper, a young Rowdy Roddy Piper. And Piper had just lost the title. He loses the hair match as well, the Americas title, that is. And Piper loses his hair in this contest. Nice, old, rare program for this time. These suckers from the Lucha side don't even ask what they cost. I mean, it's hundreds. If you could even find them, especially title matches and title changes, man, it's such a hard territory to collect. Especially, well, now on the East Coast, it doesn't matter because you have the world at your fingertips. You can find shit, and it still isn't easy to find it. So we're bringing back to this magazine in 1976 when Graham is on top of the steel trash can, right, and walking through Manhattan. This issue, we're going to look at it. Ah, shit, I just lost the fucking page. Hang on. We're going to be taking a look. Here it is. We're going to be taking a look at the war between Chavo and Terry Funk, and the information on their feud and how he won as a rookie is in this issue here. Terry Funk taking on Chavo. There's several pages. I'm not going to go into all of them because some of them are in the back, but it's covered if you want to read about it and catch up on some of the history of that feud, which was loved by many, is in this July 1976 issue of Inside Wrestling. And only 2 times did Stanley Weston roll with this font of Inside. I like that. It's like Batman 60s, 70s, flashing right in your face. I thought that was pretty cool. It looks like a tabloid. It looks like an exploitation movie poster that's on 42nd Street, but it didn't last long, and they went back to their more traditional style. But only one of 2 of these that were done like that. Inside of this Gong special Invitation to the Ring, Gong issue 1, Gong number 1, meaning the version number 1, not separate volume. Invitation to the Ring is not September of 1976. Inside, on the cover, Tiger Jeet Singh, of course, but inside, I got a nice shot of Bockwinkel and Heenan with Nick as the champ, but we're looking at this for Chavo Guerrero, Terry Funk battling for the NWA World title in a steel cage in Los Angeles. And here is some color photos. Up above the ring here is Rowdy Roddy Piper in what they would call sometimes the Shark Tank, in that little tiny one-man little cage above the ring, so he couldn't interfere, and he's above watching the action, and Funk and Chavo get it on. And here's some more photos here. Oh shit, I didn't even notice. Here's Piper with his head shaved. Let me zoom in a little bit. There's the Rowdy one, losing his hair, the bald look of the young Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Chavo wearing the Mexican colors, Funk with the Texas flag trunks on him during the match. Great looking color photos, of course, and it continues on. Pile driven on the outside of the ring by Funk. Nope, there's no mats on them floors. Back into the ring again for the cage match, and it goes back into more. There's black and white pages in the back, but great looking shots of that match are in there. Also, Wrestling Monthly has a spread that continues on with the war and a continuation with Gory Guerrero with Roddy Piper. Here's Roddy Piper early. Sorry. Here's Roddy Piper early with the America's title as well as the Tag Team Championship belt that he holds with Crusher Verdun. And this is the time when Piper took the America's belt and put the Scottish flag on the background of the leather and had it re-leathered. And pretty funny early looking shot of the Rowdy One as double champion comes into the ring with his tag team partner Crusher, and here he is with the mop looking like J.J. Dillon of the late 70s, and really curly, kinky hair, taking on John Tolos here in Los Angeles. And he would continue on his war with Chavo, and talking about the shaved head match. Piper is determined to have shaved Chavo's head in the hair versus hair. And Piper ended up losing, I think, 2 hair versus hair matches between the father and the son. But it's all covered here. Wrestling Monthly on the lower budget side magazine that not many people grabbed because, of course, it wasn't as great as the Stanley Weston issues. But nonetheless, I mean, they covered a lot of territories that other people didn't. So I got to give them props for that. The covers were, very unappealing to the public, and it certainly didn't make any selling points for them. But there was some good, decent material in there for sure. Moving on, we're still now in California. We're going to bring it back up north again for a couple of issues. The World Ladies Tag Team Champions, Toni Rose and Donna Criscitello, were the NWA World Tag Team Champions. And here they are on the front cover with their tag team belts. This is May 1976. The card is Al Madril, Carl von Bronner, Pepper Gomez, Rocky Johnson takes on the Invader. Let's see here. Toni Rose and Criscitello take on Judy Grable and Vicky Williams. Don Morocco and the Masked Invader take on the tag team champions. Actually, the tag team champions are Don Morocco and the Invader. They are facing Pat Patterson and Tony Gurria. Patterson and Gurria capture the titles this night, May 15th, 1976. Pretty cool. Another looking early 70s, mid-70s California magazine. Pepper Gomez at the end of 76, November, on the cover here. I have a lineup, the lineup's inside. Good looking shot of Pepper, who held that throughout the 60s. I think he was one of the first champions as the U.S. champion from coming over from the Fred Kohler's lineage of the end of the U.S. title belt. And good looking, like I said, good looking shot of Pepper here, still in good shape. Back down to Southern California. And how it started. We discussed this in several videos. Edouard Carpentier from Canada becomes the first Canadian World Heavyweight Champion, defeating Lou Thesz for the title in 1957, and it's all covered here in this Wrestling Life issue. This is a promotional photo separate from the magazine. This isn't on the magazine. If you just not to get confused. So you see, I just threw it in there. This is Lou Thesz here in defeat while Carpentier is getting his hand raised here, and it was considered a non-title exchange by the NWA. They didn't recognize it. Carpentier takes the title to California, and they form their own World Championship, World Wrestling Associates in Los Angeles, and that's how they separated from the NWA and became their own, only to go back to the NWA some years later and drop the world title, and they would create the America's title, which we're going to show a couple of America's titles covers as well. Freddie Blassie would take on Carpentier, and here is an early shot of Blassie with the belt after defeating Carpentier. This is a mail-in program that was, you could be a member or actually on the subscriber of the program. You could have them sent to your house, say a week before the show or whatever, however they mailed it out, and for the big events, and you would be up to date on what was coming up, and this was their advertisement, and these were their mail-ins. Now, unbeknownst to myself, as I'm going through some of these, my wife's cousin happens to be a stamp collector, and his eyes immediately focused on this stamp right here of Franklin Roosevelt. He says, holy shit, that's an expensive stamp. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man. He goes, that's a really rare stamp from the early 60s. I'm like, yeah, it's from this magazine's from the early 60s, you know? So he just happens to pick up his phone and Googles it. There's one on eBay for $175. This was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I am a shit. And what it was cut out off the envelope and stamped. And they were selling for that much money. I was like, damn, man, that's pretty cool. But I don't give a shit about the stamp. We're here about Freddie Blassie. Freddie becomes the second world champion in the Los Angeles territory. And here he is with an early shot of him on the cover of that program on the inside. Blassie brings the title, supposedly, because he comes to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, to challenge Pedro, the champion, some years later in the 70s. Freddie was no longer the champion at this point, but he is on the cover of the Garden program, being announced as the Pacific Coast champion. And he would get another belt even after he lost the belt and still recognize himself as the Pacific Coast champion. And that belt very much so looked like the World Wrestling Federation belt that Bruno had and Superstar had. But he was already not that champion, and that belt did not go with that territory's belt. I believe it did go to a Pacific Coast Canada belt, though. I'd have to look it up. I'll have all that information for the California video when we do it. Like I said, I'm just giving you just a fast run through of some of these that you guys wanted to see, that I thought I'd throw it together. And Blassie would drop the title to the JWA World Champion Ricky Dozan. Ricky Dozan, who defeated Lou Thez to become the International NWA World Champion in '57. Now coming over and conquering WWA World title, no longer an NWA affiliate in '62. And he would take the title from Blassie. Blassie would get the title back. It would go back and forth. Dozan, it would go back to the next champion, which would be the Destroyer. Hang on a second, because I got shit. Don't tell me that. Damn it! I wanted to show you the soup. There I go again. Forgetting something, leaving something out, having it close by. It's probably going to bite me in my shoulder as soon as I turn around. Fuck. All right, never mind. Here it is. I was a big fan of this Destroyer, and I had a Destroyer figure made, and there was none, and there should have been. And what an awesome job, man. Really cool. The detail was awesome. Japan released a couple of figures, but not like this. Nothing, big. And the detail was just awesome. The back of the hood with the stripe, with the boots. And I don't know if you can see, but man, some really detail in his eyes. The two-tone blue. Anybody in there? It's about as close as I can get with the focus, but really cool looking shot of the Destroyer. One of a kind figure, and super, super love it. I picked this blue mask to be made after a magazine you're going to see in a second, so hang on one sec, we're almost there. The Destroyer now the champion, and he would be defending the title. He was huge in Japan. He would go back and forth. He would spend most of his time in Japan through the mid-'70s, late 60s, but even in the early 60s and 50s he was in Japan. But predominantly AWA or Japan, with the Destroyer would spend most of his career. He was also back in the States as Dr. X, and he wore the big black X on the head, sometimes a red X with double X as tag team partner. A phantom match, supposedly, as you read on Wikipedia. Don't read Wikipedia. Don't get your wrestling history education from Wikipedia. It's ass backwards. 90% of it's wrong. The dates are wrong. The people are wrong. It's a crime that anybody with a finger can update Wikipedia. I didn't know that. I figured, with some people with some fact checking. There's no fact checking on Wikipedia. A lot of the shit that you're reading there is completely wrong. Now, it might be innocent mistakes with wrestling. People just don't know, or they overlook something because it's, by and large, it's not that important. But it's just as important if you're trying to learn something about history and life, or the country, or the state of this or that. You can be very careful what you read there, because it is not fact checked. What had happened was that NWA, or the WWA Los Angeles, refused to recognize the title change for the next up-and-comer, Toyo Nobori. Toyo Nobori, this is on the heels of Ricky Dozan's death, and the protege is coming out, and he wants revenge and wants the title for Ricky Dozan. He wins the title, Toyo Nobori, right here as we're talking, on January of '65, wrestling, boxing, monthly, and we're going to go inside. Wait 1 sec while the page is stuck here. Inside to the pre-match with some really good-looking shots now of the belt that just changed styles. And you'll see the Destroyer here with the new belt, presenting the new belt in a press conference before the match. Also, you see him here. Look at that unique, for Destroyer fans, look at that unique mask with the star and the crescent moon on his hood. Pretty cool early-looking shot of that belt that was just being presented for defense. Tony Obori would take the belt. These pages are brittle and hard to open sometimes. Am I missing anything? Here's some shots from the match. Tony Obori taking the title back here to the dressing room. Some in-action shots, his hands getting raised down here. The look of shock on the Destroyer's face. These pages are rough to open. These are all in black and white. This is still a little early for this publication to blast a lot of color. They would give you a color poster and a color page, but it wouldn't be till the later 60s they would give you more color in this publication. Gong always gave you color. Here he is, Tony Obori on the front here with his hand raised as champion, and just a couple of photos of the match that's going by. So here he is, the challenger, takes the title. Here he is on his first magazine cover as the champion with the brand new belt, and the Destroyer is waiting in the wings, chomping his bit to get the belt back. He does get the belt back. The title on Wikipedia, for some reason, is null and void and pronounced as fictitious, or the match never happened, although they do mention, Tony Obori was the champion. Now, back to the photo. I wanted my Destroyer figure to be after this blue cover here, and it's damn close if you look at the face, and the face, he's missing the tooth, and pretty cool. So that was how I made the guy make it for me, and does an incredible job. He always does. And if you're not letting money stop you for things that you like, anybody can do it. It just sucks. It's not cheap, but whatever. Here it is now. Another controversy is going to come its way here in Los Angeles. Dick the Bruiser would take on the Destroyer. He would take the championship, and he would be the next champion. Dick the Bruiser would defend the title, and this is getting into 64, 65 area, whatever it is, and things are about to crumble. Dick the Bruiser loses the title back to the Destroyer, and Dick the Bruiser decides not to recognize the loss. Takes the belt, joins up with his arch enemy Wilbur Snyder, and forms his own company in Indianapolis called World Wrestling Associates, or WWA Indianapolis, and takes the belt with him. The WWA does not recognize, in Los Angeles, does not recognize Dick the Bruiser as the champion, and the belt goes back to the Destroyer. Remember this, we're going to come back to it in a minute when we get to the Sheik. I'm telling myself to remember this because I'll forget to bring it back up. So business as usual, Dick the Bruiser loses the belt to the Destroyer. Destroyer carries on as the champion, and now we have two WWAs going on at the same time. The continuation of the WWA, NWA now becoming affiliated, the Olympic Auditorium taking on Pedro Morales. Pedro Morales would be the next champion. This is another smaller program from the Los Angeles territory. A lot of them were huge, giant, big ones. They were in like 71 through 73-ish. Some of them were real small. Some of them were real mail-aways. They were very inconsistent with the style of the program. Some were, they called there's the Wrestling Times, and there was the Grappler. There was several different names for each one. Pedro Morales now as champion. Great looking shot of him now with the new belt that Dick the Bruiser stole the old version, and they had to make a new version. And this is the new version with the leather and much bigger, nicer, thicker looking belt, more like a championship belt should look. This is Pedro moving up to the San Francisco territory to defend that title all throughout the state of California here. Rare program here, and this is a back shot of Native American Indian lady wrestlers. Here's original. This is an original promotional photo of Pedro. It's even dated, I think, January of 61. Yeah, it's upside down. January 61 from the Houston Library. Pedro Morales, California, champion of California wrestler. A pretty cool looking photo. You could go to the library and see pictures of the boxing champions, the wrestling champions, the Olympic champions, the basketball teams, the football teams, and stuff like that. Because there's no internet. There's hardly any TV that's serious, about to explode pretty soon. Still early 60s right now. So the library kind of had everything you ever needed about anything. And they had addresses and places you could write your letters to say you want to send it to the World Wrestling Federation, care of so-and-so, and then that letter could go to that wrestler, and if you got lucky, he could write you back. It did happen. I've had it happen to a few basketball players for the Los Angeles Lakers when I was a kid, and I got them returned. I mean, nobody's serious, Kurt Rambis and Green actually wrote me back, but, Worthy and Magic and Kareem certainly were not going to write back to anybody. But it used to, it was cool. It was something you could do, and, it was our only way of communicating back then. The library was the place to be. Pedro would drop the title to Crazy Luke Graham. Crazy Luke on the cover here with the championship belt on a Houston program, Texas, and bringing the title over to Houston. Bobo Brazil also take the title. Here's a good shot of Bobo with that belt. He's not on any magazine cover with the championship belt other than the United States belt that he had won from the Sheik. So finding anything with Bobo on it is few and far between, if anything, because I have not seen nothing. Next champion, Cowboy Bob Ellis, on the cover of the Rings Wrestling magazine. This is moving ahead now some 7 or 8 years later in 74, showing an older picture of Ellis with the belt. Kind of hard to see it. If you just glance over it, you'll quickly miss it. Gorilla Monsoon here, also in the center of the magazine. We're talking about Rocky Johnson being the champion up north, and here he is in Los Angeles now as the America's champion. Don't see an exact date. Oh, February 6th, Friday, and no date. It's 70, whatever the hell. It's inside. Like I said, I'll be more prepared for the LA video. Pork Chop Cash would take that belt as well. Greg Valentine would take it. Ernie Ladd would take it. We got a bunch of other guys who would take it. You've seen those photos that I had of Valentine with the bloody face and the belt. The new style of that belt right here. If I can get a better picture. I mean, you've seen this before from me, but at least it's in arm's distance. Ernie Ladd now with that America's belt here, and on a signed 4x6 rather. Nice gold looking belt, way better looking. I thought that was like their best looking America's belt out of all of them. They didn't stay with that for very long. Just a handful of dudes would carry that version. The Sheik would come in to challenge John Tolos, who also held that style belt. And the Sheik comes up short. He is the America's champion though for NWA Detroit. Pampiro Firpo would also be the champion and also hold that belt. This is another program. I think I got Pampiro in here in color. I can show you. This is another weird program that opens in 4 different sections, which is a pain in the ass. Oh no, it's not in color. I thought it was. You know what? The Japanese magazine has it in color. Here's Pampiro winning the title, America's title here. These, are giant pullouts. This is for September 13th, 1974. The Sheik taking on Pampiro for the belt. And in one of the Japanese issues that I was looking through earlier had color photos of that match. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend like I have it here because I know I don't. But do I? Don't make a liar out of me. Could have sworn. Oh yeah, here it is. Takes on the Sheik in a bloody match here. Actually, you can see the whole thing if I can squeeze it all in with the glare. Good bloody bout. Sheik covered in blood on the right-hand side, on the left as well with the chair. There is Pampiro with the America's belt. Didn't hold that belt long. He is in one of the Stanley Weston wrestling photo albums, number maybe 2 or 3 with that belt. Pretty cool. He only held it for a short time. And them also, they just split up as being tag team partners in the NWF with Johnny Powers and the Double Cross out there in Cleveland that we discussed. Also the same time period. Now, during the 100th video that we did, I had said, yeah, I want to show you some things that I have from the Sheik, and then completely, you know, made a complete U-turn and went 180 degrees to another direction and forgot all about the Sheik. So there was a few things that I wanted to show with him and Bruno that was pretty rare, that you don't see every day, especially with the Sheik being in the WWF. Beforehand, here is one of my earlier big time wrestling programs, which is like a magazine / program from California, and yet another style, another version. It's small, it's compact. I dislike this one the most. This is autographed by 13 people. This is the night the Sheik takes on Pepper Gomez for the title. The lineup sheet is inside this very small little pamphlet-sized program, but also has the newspaper article discussing the Sheik coming very close to winning the title, but Pepper retains the title that night. And here is the Sheik on the cover of the program here, young-looking Sheik in 1962. And when I left off with the video I did on the 100th, I began to show some cutouts from the New York Daily News or the Post, whatever the fuck. I can never remember. So this, I just want to get them in the right. This is their October of '68 match here. Bruno taking on the Sheik at the Madison Square Garden. Victor Rivera, Haystacks Calhoun, Gorilla Monsoon, Baron Cicluna, Bobo Brazil, Bull Ramos also on the card, and their other Bruno turns the other Sheik. This is the match that shows the next day, you know, the results as well. Bruno here on the bottom takes a bow but keeps the belt, so the Sheik gets the victory on these two clippings at the bottom. We have the beginning of the match, you know, before the match rather, after the match, and then another page from after the match from the October a match up at the Garden, and then they would meet again in November. Do I have an exact date on here? Let's see. Next Garden mat appearance is December 9th, and it doesn't say the actual date. But just talking about Bruno. Bruno whips the Sheik by a nose, and Bruno just skates by and gets through. If I hold it close enough, you can probably pause and read whatever it said. If you wanted a second to look at this one, I can, you know, wanted to pause it and just check it out. You're never going to see shit like this. Nobody has these clippings from the Sheik and Bruno, man. It's really hard to find shit like that. So, you know, and rather than me read it, and this was their final matchup in December, Sheik and Bruno once again. It's so small and I can't see shit. I'm going blinder and blinder as I climb into my 50s here. It sucks. Rivera, Fitzpatrick, Monsoon, Haystacks, Arion, also the Butcher, Kowalski, and at the bottom here, Bruno and the Sheik go at it again. And just a small little clips here that, to me, I think are priceless, man. I love stuff like that. It wasn't for the masses. It was, you know, only if you grabbed that publication of the paper. And what are the odds of someone keeping that paper and having it, you know, with the Sheik and Bruno? Come on. I mean, I really fell into a pot of luck when I picked those suckers up. Almost as much as my signed issue of the match between Bruno and the Sheik, March 29th at the Boston Garden, inside of a steel cage. And here is the program to that, and it is signed by Bruno on the side in pen. Let's go inside if you want. You can take a look and read the rest of the card. These, again, were mail-aways, and you can see how they were folded as it is, which is awful for collectors, but what are you going to do? And then the name would be sent here, and it would be in no envelope or anything. This was it. It was mailed just like this piece of paper. So how it survived is beyond me. Here, finally, is the lineup sheet. Am I getting all that in there? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, as you can see it, man, you know, Calhoun and Kowalski, Carlos Colon is on the card taking on Tanaka, Victor Rivera, Baron Cicluna, and Bruno in the cage. against the Sheik on this side here. If I can fit it all in, let's leave it like that. Good looking shots of those two in their previous matches, and from the Garden, either the Boston Garden or Madison Square Garden. And good looking rare program of the Sheik in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, challenging for Bruno Sammartino's Worldwide Wrestling Federation title. Great looking program. Super lucky to have that. The Wrestling World issue following the match would have its first color pinup poster of the match, and here is what Wrestling World gave as their color centerfold. Bruno here and the Sheik in the wire mesh, and this side Bruno capturing the Sheik before climbing out of the cage. Really cool, rare pics, and to have it in what they call for the time color, we'll take it because it's, we got nothing else for this. There's no recording of it, there's no video of it that I'm aware of or anyone else that I know of is aware of, and they gave you two full size and then a couple of cropped photos, but nonetheless we'll take what we can get for these two legends of the 60s and the 70s of professional wrestling, Bruno and the Sheik. Really cool. I forget the issue that has the poster in it. I'm sorry if it means something to you. Just message me and I will look it up and in the comments and tell you the date so you can get it and who's on the cover. Let's see. The Sheik 1974 takes on Jerry Lawler for the AWA Southern Championship belt, Mid-South Coliseum, and this is a program, an 8x10 color photo album of all the matches that were going on in the Mid-South Coliseum, and it's he's taking on Lawler here, and I'll just open it up because most of you have never even seen this. The other majority of who have seen it never seen the inside of it, so why not? Let's take a look. In the back, I believe, is most of the pictures were Lawler versus the Sheik. Here is the last page, so I'm opening it backwards because they're in the back. Sheik and Lawler. These pages are really thick, man. Damn. A few more here. Sheik is throwing the fire, and I'm sure Jerry stole that concept after this night of the fire. Sheik is just starting to pour some blood here with Lawler. I think there's a few more. Sheik now, great shot of him with the foreign object into the stomach of Lawler. Lawler coming back with his own closed fist to the Sheik's head. And I think there's another. Yep, there's several. Okay, so the lock up here and the Sheik with the object, if you can see that in his hand, as well as his ceremonial prayer before the match that the Sheik was so customary of doing. And there's just some action photos from all the other guys here. Like I said, 20 some odd pages from the Mid-South Coliseum, Dundee, Ox Baker, and whatnot. Oh, and this is a pretty rare one. I don't really know how rare. I don't know how many are out there. I haven't seen too many. I got it with a bunch of what are they called? Ringside action programs from Lawler's territory in the early 70s. I'm guessing this is still Nick Goulas' time, I guess, right? 74 before they split, and what was that, 77, 8, something like that. And that was what we have some stuff from Midwest from Nick Goulas actually too we're going to look at. But so this is Jerry Lawler, Memphis Wrestling, Sheik taking on Lawler for the title. Sheik would also take on comers from all over. Here's an early shot of him in 77 with the snake. You didn't see him with a snake very often, and a good looking shot of him now in the Midwest, and taking on some of Nick Goulas's people defending the title there, and one of Nick Goulas's Slamogram program magazines, which are also super ridiculous to find, man. From the late 70s when he went on his own till early 80, whatever. Goulas, Jarrett separated, and he had, another promotional war going on. And great looking shot of the Sheik here on the cover of this program. I didn't realize I thought the lineup sheet was inside. Hold on a sec. Lineup sheet, Don Ross taking on the Sheik for the NWA United States title in a lumberjack style match. You can see that with the damn glare, but Gypsy Joe, Buzz Tyler, Pez Watley, list goes on, Fargo, Yamamoto, Bob Russell, and Angelo Poffo at the bottom, Randy Savage's Pop, all for Nick Goulas' NWA Midwest, 1978. Here is an issue that's quite historical in and of itself. This is one of the last body press programs before the Sheik would take over the Michigan territory, the Detroit territory, and the beginning of Dick the Bruiser's new territory in Indianapolis, and the fight for Chicago and Michigan and the surrounding areas. So we mentioned Dick the Bruiser before, right? And he takes off. He goes and forms his own company with the title with Wilbur Snyder, and they're talking about Fred Kohler selling the promotion to Dick the Bruiser. And inside, this is a very old and delicate program. It's seen better days, but I'm never going to find another one. And this is February 29th, 1964, Body Press Program Magazine. And it's talking about, I keep forgetting I'm shooting this in widescreen, talking about the no holds barred match strike threatens Michigan wrestling scene. And I'm just going to hold it like that for now because it's not going to stay, and I don't want to fuck it up. It talks about who is Dick the Bruiser and why is he partnering up with his arch enemy Wilbur Snyder to form their own company. Two wrestlers know nothing about wrestling. They're not promoters. They're not going to be able to survive. They need this and they need that, and they're talking about how it's going to fail. And this is just coming out of the ground, just as he took the title from the Destroyer and moves it back to Indianapolis. Also talks about Fred Kohler and the sale of the his shares, the ending of Pedro Martinez's NWF and how it folded and what he paid and bought for. I can paraphrase a few lines that I thought were, somewhat significant if you want to hear. Let's see, the stakes of Wilbur Snyder and the Bruiser are high. Here are some examples of a good wrestling operation is worth. 8 years ago, Pedro Martinez paid Don George $175,000 for wrestling promotion in Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester. He paid $75,000 cash, and then a $10,000 a year payment back to was being made to Martinez. Fred Kohler in Chicago is trying to sell off his interests in Illinois for $100,000, $50,000 cash, and then easy payments to pay off the balance throughout time. Involved in that would be the promotion of Chicago at the Ample Theater, the booking office, which books the wrestlers throughout Illinois and Wisconsin. This is legitimate throughout Illinois. Let's see, Jack Pfeffer is manufacturing all the phony names in the wrestling and the wrestlers as they get their identities. As a result, the Chicago attendance has almost ceased to exist. And they're talking about Roy Shire here, his investments in the San Francisco market. Other pages will go on to say that Kohler is selling his interest, and it's just, I think, 3 months away before the Sheik bought it. So the Sheik now doesn't have his territory. He's just about to take over buy it from Fred Kohler, and start the Michigan Detroit territory, which is going to be a complete opposition with Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder, and that will create a promotional war that would last the next 10 years or better in and around that surrounding area of Detroit, Indianapolis, and whatnot. Really cool information here for two companies up and coming that, one in the months in the future and one just starting now, and how they predict it will unfold. They were predicting the Bruiser to be a complete failure, especially partnering up with his enemy, Wilbur Snyder, at the time. When it comes to making money, he's a wrestler, and he's not a promoter, and he's not a booker. What does he know about it? But, quite the contrary. The Bruiser did actually quite well for himself, and also the Sheik as well. But all in this pretty rare issue of Body Press, and this is just before the Sheik would take ownership of Detroit and also, run the magazine with Brian Bucantis and all the others. My friends Gary Mancuso, Handsome Gary, all those guys would be involved in that magazine throughout the 70s and make it the iconic magazine of what it is today. Here is a couple more early looks at Body Press magazine before it exploded again. This is the basic look. This is in 1976, February of 76. Sheik now has, a good 2 years or so into the company of Detroit and taking on the I want to say Ivan Putski, and I know it's not Mighty Igor here in Detroit. Another one from 68 now, 1 year later, taking on Mark Lewin. And we all know these styles of Body Press that turned in